So welcome everyone to this month's Dish with Dina Wellness webinar. We are going to be focusing on the topic of mindful health and wellness. This week, at the time of this webinar and this recording, we are honoring World Mental Health Day. But honestly, mental health plays a big role in a lot of the things we do, no matter what the awareness topic or the wellness factors are in our day-to-day lives. So I'm hoping what you get from today's discussion, today's presentation, is some of the following things: understanding how the impact of mental health can play a role in both our food and other lifestyle choices and habits. We will also go through some mindful practices to help us enhance our overall well-being. And I always kind of laugh when I say these words because they're very vague, right? What is mental health? What is a mindful practice? What is well-being? Well, it's all a very personal way that you approach things too. So hopefully some of the strategies and tools that I'm providing to you today, you can take with you as you move in the direction, but we'll also talk a little bit more about some other ways that we can help each other with managing our mental health. But lastly, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as to what even this means, the conversation around holistic approaches, especially when it comes to managing our stress and emotional eating, because obviously when I'm speaking, I always kind of come from the food and nutrition direction, but I also do take a larger approach to see what else might be going on, what other factors I need to take into consideration when I'm working with my patients and clients. Just a few little housekeeping items here. If you've never attended one of these webinars before, this is recorded. So you are all coming in, you can hear the announcement that it's making. This is the chat box is open at any time. So especially with today, I'm going to try to have this be a little bit more of an interactive discussion if possible. Not that you have to speak to me necessarily, but I might ask you to drop some information in the chat. But I always try to keep my eye on the time and wrap up so that we have plenty of time for a Q&A at the end. So about 40-ish minutes or so, you can expect me chatting. And then at the end of the official presentation, we'll have some question and answer time at the end. And that's open for anything. It doesn't have to be just about this topic. It could be really anything that I'm able to give you guidance on. So that leads me to my disclaimer, which is that even though I am a registered dietitian, I'm not your registered dietitian. So please make sure that you're taking everything that you learn in this and other wellness webinars, and really anything that I have posted as free resources across the internet, on social media, etc., as just basic general information for just your educational purposes. If there is anything that you need or are currently working on to help manage your chronic conditions or illnesses or other factors and issues that you might have to take into consideration in your own health and wellness world, please make sure that you are reaching out to your particular healthcare provider, specialist, etc. And if we discuss anything related to food, medicine, physical activity, please make sure that you're also getting cleared by your doctor, because only you and that person know your unique needs. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend just taking it upon yourself to move forward with new strategies or eating new foods that might interact with your current medication, or taking supplements that you're not sure if they are going to be helpful or hurtful to whatever your particular condition might be. After this webinar is over, at the end of this webinar, I always say at the end of this webinar, it's not really, it's probably like within a week, because I can't get my act together fast enough for this. But whoever registered for this, whether you are attending live or you're watching the recording of this, we do collect your emails and your names. It does go into a database for our follow-up emails, and it gets put into also our newsletter system. So after the end of this webinar, we send out an email with the recording link. So again, you can come and go as you please, or if you're missing the live version of this, you'll get a copy of that the recording link at the end of it. So you can view it at your own time, or you can watch it again at a later date if you want to rewatch it. We also send out a survey link in that email just so that we can get some feedback, because we have an exhaustive list of topics that we are happy to create and share with all of you, but we also like to gather information as to what went well, what didn't go so well, what we can improve on in these webinars, and also any other points of interest or topics of interest that we can consider for future webinars. And in the newsletter, So that right now, I'm only doing about a monthly newsletter. Once a month, I just do kind of a blast out with some information about the topic of choice for that month. There's some links in there too, information that I have as far as like my blog posts, etc. You can always opt out. If you're like, I don't want to be on your newsletter list, that's totally fine. You can opt out after you receive this email and the follow-up survey. Something I keep forgetting to do, I don't know why, is, is asking for your support. I provide these webinars and a variety of other resources, like I just mentioned, a lot of things across my social media platforms. I have a whole YouTube channel, I have a podcast. So everything there is accessible to you for free. But on my side of things, it takes a lot of effort and energy and time, as I'm sure you can all imagine. There was a moment in my life not too long ago where I did have some help with interns and students, but things got a little bit busy on my end. And so now I'm kind of flying solo. And so what you could do to help me is spread the word. If you think that this was interesting for you, or if you think someone else might find what I am sharing with you interesting, send them over to connect with me on social media. You can find me pretty much everywhere, even places I'm not even currently keeping up with consistent posting. You can find me everywhere as Dish with Dina. You can also head over to my website at dishwithdina.com and click around on all the things there. There's even a button there that you can request an initial nutrition consultation with me, because that is technically what I do, which I'll share with you here in my introduction. If we've never met before, hello, I'm Dina D'Alessandro. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I have been doing this for about 8 years now. This is a second career for me, and I really enjoy marrying both the education part of my world and even my previous life and my current life doing counseling and helping people with behavioral modifications and also clinical food modifications and things that they need to adjust or account for when they are managing chronic conditions. I've also been an adjunct lecturer for the past 6 years at Lehman College in the Bronx, which is actually my alma mater, my alma mater, where I went back to school 11 years ago. 11 years ago, I went back to school there to pursue a second degree undergrad in science and then a master's degree in science. And that's also where I did my dietetic internship there. So they loved me enough, and I loved them enough, that they offered me, and I said yes to being an adjunct lecturer. So I teach both nutrition undergrad classes and also some graduate classes too now. And again, I've been doing that for about 6 years. I'm also the on-campus dietitian. I work at the Student Health Center, where I work with a variety of patient populations. Even though they are all college goers, we have quite a diverse group of people coming to Lehman College, some of which join me in these webinars. So you know what I'm talking about when I say we have quite the diverse group of people in that community. I'm also the founder of I'm very excited, the newly officially registered trademarked Dish with Dina brand. So that is a virtual wellness platform, again, where I do things like this, some things for free, some things fee-based, but ultimately trying to share with you as much as I can and help you embrace and develop new relationships with food, but also try to create an advocacy and empowerment for you to go from confused to confident if you are currently managing a chronic condition, or you think you are at risk for one, or you have a family history of something that you want to learn a little bit more about. It can be really confusing and frustrating out there if you don't have someone like me in your corner. So I'm here to help you go through and manage your overall well-being, I hope. As you can see here, a bunch of other things. I won't go too into detail with a lot of that stuff, but yeah, I do a bunch of other things. You can find me anywhere if you'd like to connect with me in some way, shape, or form. Please feel free to reach out. I'm always excited to gather more networks, connections, and make more friends in the virtual space and otherwise. So I want us to start with something that is known as a grounding exercise. And I'm also just going to disclaim this. I'm not a psychotherapist in any way. This is something that is done more in the land of behavioral health, but this comes up in a lot of things that I do as well. And not just as a dietitian, but also as a lecturer, because I have students that, pull all-nighters, they cram for exams, they have massive amounts of workloads every semester, they're taking on a ton of credits, and it can feel quite overwhelming. So whatever role you're playing right now, whatever position you're in right now, or role you're playing right now, think of all the times that you're walking through life just completely mindless, right? You stub your toe on something, probably weren't paying attention to that. You ate A meal, can't even remember what it tasted like, right? So we're going to go through what's known as the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. And if you want to, you can share with me in the chat, or if you happen to be watching this in the recording, you can, well, I don't know what you can do with it. You can send me a note as to how this was working for you, but think about 5 things currently that you can see in front of you, in your surroundings, right? Take a look around your immediate vicinity, or however the eye can see, and think about 5 things that you can see. You can add them in the chat if you want to. I'm going to write down mine on my side here, and I'll say them out loud as well so you can see what I'm seeing. So in front of me, obviously, I see a computer screen. Because of the camera, I can also see behind me my beautiful floral wallpaper, which brings me a lot of joy. I love the colors in that. It makes me very happy. I also see to the left of me is a window. So out that window, I can see a variety of things. I can see buildings. I can see the very blue sky that we have the honor of having lovely, lovely weather today. So that's, I'm going to say 4. And then also somewhat in front of me too, we have a very large print in front of me that says dream. And I really love that because every time I look at it, it makes me think of not just having a good night's sleep, but also allowing myself to think about the bigger version of who I can become. So those are my 5 things that I can see. If you feel like putting in the chat box what you saw or what you're currently seeing, feel free. If not, that's okay. We can move on to number 4, the 4 things that you can touch or feel. So it doesn't necessarily mean something that you're physically holding, could also be something that you're feeling up against your body. So my 4 things are my pen, because I'm writing with that right now. I can also feel the seat underneath my tushy. So I'm going to say my chair, my seat. I can also feel the weight of my sweater or my clothes on me as well. That's something that I can feel. And I can also feel, as comfortable as these are, I can also feel the weight of my headphones on my head. So those are 4 things that I can feel. And thank you for those of you who are chiming in the chat. I'm going to check those out in a sec. Okay, the 3 things that I can hear, that you can hear. What are you listening to right now? What is some of the noise or the external environmental factors that you can pick up on? So 3 of those things for me. Well, I can hear the hum of something. There's something humming. It's either the television in the other room or, oh, I know what it might be. It might be my air purifier. So I can hear that in the background as a hum. I can also hear my own voice as I'm speaking in kind of like the echo inside of my headphones. And I can also hear a little bit of the outside noise too, even though this is noise canceling. I can still hear a little bit of the outside noise. It's New York City, so obviously it's going to be packed full of noise outside. So I can hear 3 of those things. Maybe you can hear different things or whatever you're listening to. You can put that in the chat if you'd like to, or just make a note of that for yourself. Next thing are 2 things you can smell. Or if you can't smell something right now, 2 scents or aromas that come to mind that maybe bring you joy or maybe that you don't like. So right now, the scent I'm getting, we had cooked earlier. So I can smell a little bit from the kitchen of, the heat from the stove. So I can still smell a little bit of the aroma of we made eggs earlier. So I can smell a little bit of that. And I can also smell a little bit of a lavender spray that I use in this room. So I can smell, it's funny, like I have a savory and a sweet scent, something that is a little bit more pungent and powerful and something that is a little bit more lighter. It makes me feel kind of comfortable. Okay, the last thing is something that you can taste or something that you enjoy the taste of, if you'd like to focus on that. The picture here says, this person's not loving what they're tasting, but obviously it could be a favorable taste if that's something that you want to share. I only taste, I think, my toothpaste, like when I just recently brushed my teeth. So I'm tasting a little bit of the after effects of my toothpaste. And yeah, so that's the one thing I can taste. So the reason why we do this, and the reason why I do this sometimes both with my patients, clients, or my students as well, is to get them out of the stress focus of whatever they're really having taking over them that's causing them a lot of stress. And instead allow them to open up and experience the things that are going on around them in order to help ground them a little bit more. So let me check the chat here and see. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Jocelyn. In front of you, water, fountain. Oh, that's so lovely. Empty bottle, trees. That's so great. The chair, the cell phone. Exactly. Oh, okay. Thank you for that. And the ground, etc. Yeah, wonderful. People walking, the falling water. Oh, that sounds so lovely wherever you are. I'm hoping it brings you joy and comfort. And I appreciate you taking part in this practice with us today. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of mental health on a few things. Food choices for one, both positive and negative ways that things can be impacted. So we have things that, if you're not really paying attention to things and you're dealing with mental health issues, whether they are formally diagnosed or you're just going in a certain direction where maybe you're in a rut, you're feeling a little sad, depressed, maybe right now there's, season changing here in the Northeast region, so some of us don't love how dark it is in the morning, and so things like that can affect our overall mental health, or if you want to call it mood instead, that's totally fine. So it might play a role in the way that you make maybe impulse purchases. And in the case of food, maybe you're buying things that you don't have a plan for, or things that you find a little bit more indulgent, and then you end up feeling guilty for eating them. And that might also lead to stress eating or emotional eating or getting cravings for something, right? Reaching out for comfort foods because there is maybe some softness around you that is missing and you're in a hard, difficult time of life. And so these things bring you joy, but they might bring you short-term joy because, as we know, sometimes these things don't last and they're not necessarily always beneficial for our health. Also, it can affect our relationships with food. Maybe we have hunger and fullness cues that go by the wayside. Maybe we start restricting our diet or over consuming foods, or maybe we start placing morality and guilt on things. I was a bad person because I ate like this today, or I'm a good person because I did all these wonderful things. So I deserve having this treat, right? It can affect the way that we respond when food is really just there to nourish us or provide us with enjoyment. We also understand there are some foods, and I'm sure I don't have to go into it. If you've ever been to any of my webinars or if you've ever read anything about, good quality foods that exist out there, there are definitely foods that can support mental health. So we're talking about things that like omega-3 fatty acids that can be found in fish and nuts, avocado. We're talking about complex carbohydrates that help with regulating our digestive system and helping with our gut and helping control our blood sugar with different kinds of fibrous foods. So all of these things that can support our mental health, because as I shared in, oh gosh, I can't remember when this was that I did the gut discussion, the gut and the brain axis, things that affect our mental health or our brain function. There is also a bidirectionality in our gut in the lower gastrointestinal area. So if I'm feeling really stressed out about something, it could affect how I digest something, and vice versa. If my stomach is going through some complications, it might affect my ability to focus or it might make me feel a little foggy. So there's definitely that kind of two-way street when it comes to our gut and our mind. Impact of mental health again on sleep habits. We are coming to see in research that sleep quality and quantity are really important. So the amount and the restfulness that we get on any given day as an average over the course of the week really does end up either benefiting our overall mental health and our physical health as well. If we deny ourselves or things are causing us to sleep less, sleep more erratically, that can end up increasing our risk for neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's disease and dementia. There also might be an insomnia thing. So maybe you go night after night where you just can't sleep or things are keeping you awake. It can also affect our physical health, like I just said, right? It might cause us to have stress, and not having a great night's sleep can maybe also keep us unfocused as we're walking around, not being able to focus on things, not be able to realize, oh, we just did something, or I'm walking into something, I'm banging my knee on something. So that can also be a physical ramification of the effects of mental health on sleep habits. There also can be some mindfulness and relaxation techniques that we can get into that can help improve our mental health and therefore also our sleep habits too. So creating a bedtime or a waking routine, things that you can kind of commit to ease you into, lulling you into sleep, or also helping you ease into the morning as well. And then lastly, the impact of mental health on our physical activity. I mean, I don't feel like getting up and going to work out on most days. Throw in the mix if I'm not really feeling great or I'm feeling kind of depressed or low energy, that's not going to help me. However, I do know, and research does show too, that when we do some sort of physical movement, anything that you can move, whatever you can for however long you can, as often as you can. It really does help us with reducing and helping us manage our stress and improving our mood overall. Obviously, there are also some potential barriers to exercise too. So it's possible that if you do have mental health issues or disorders, that might not give you the ability to even go outside or even be able to work out at home, depending on where it is that you are currently living. And so we usually encourage things like, try to do some low energy movements or a little form of something, whether it's yoga, whether it's stressing, if you're able to be mobile, mindful walking, any little bit, like I said, helps both in the physical state and also the mental state as well. I see something in the chat I'm going to get to in a second. So this brings me to something that has come up. I always feel like there's a connection to everything and there's never coincidence in anything. In the last week alone, about 7 people have come to me regarding the negative self-talk. And maybe it's one of those things that, like, once I start paying attention to a topic, it appears out of nowhere. I'm more mindful about it in that sense. But a lot of us have gone through this, right? I'm one person who definitely can say mean things to myself. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. I'll never learn. What's the point? And so I want that to be a starting point for some of us too. Think of a time, you don't have to necessarily share it out loud if you don't want to here, but think of a time or when are the times that you are speaking negatively to yourself? And we're going to come back to this in a second when we go into some of the next slides. Right? So think of the language you're using. What are the words that you're saying? What is the trigger that makes you respond in a negative way to yourself? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Jocelyn. Thank you. Okay. So here are some of the things that we could do today, next week, whenever, as often as possible. But these things, this is a reason why it's called practice. These things take time. It takes time for us to really recognize when we are go, 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 and being able to slow down and being present, literally slowing down. I've had a few people say to me, I eat, I'm an emotional eater, and I ask them why, and they say, because I'm bored. I would love to be bored. I would love to have 5 minutes to myself where there's nothing to do. So some of us are not comfortable in just being in the moment and being present. And I think that's an opportunity there to really recognize, like, what is going on? Why do I have to constantly keep myself busy? What am I denying or trying to avoid? And how can I just be present in a moment, be really active in that moment? Also, think about things that you can do to manage any stress. Now, I'm going to share with you some potential guidance, but anything that works for you. This is a very individualized approach. For me, I do like going for walks. I do like journaling. I do like laughing. I like watching movies. So those things all help with managing my stress. Maybe it's a little bit different for you. The last thing, and I do want to recognize the privilege in this too, right? We do say focus on whole foods. And the reason for that is because there is potentially a little bit more healthiness to eating things that are in their more whole form versus things that have undergone a lot of what we call processing or additives. And so the further we get away from something in its more natural state, it's possible that can affect our digestion and maybe also lead to overall not mental health issues, but not necessarily supporting that too. So things that are very high in salt or fat or sugar because they are manufactured outside, those are things that we just want to be mindful of. So you don't necessarily have to have a 100% whole foods diet, but trying to base things around the foods that you can purchase and recognize for yourself. And then if there are things that are more convenient for you, just being conscientious of that. I personally do not, I personally do not soak and rinse and cook my beans from scratch. I buy canned beans, but I do make sure when I buy canned beans that I buy the low sodium version. I'll give them a quick rinse and I'll use them in a lot of my meals over the course of the week. I also buy things like frozen fruits and vegetables. So that is a form of a whole food, but it is also kind of a processed food, a convenient food. So I'm not picking things off of a tree when I talk about whole foods, but this gives you an idea of things that potentially help you with being more mindful of things, being able to pull things apart, eat things, slice and dice something that can also potentially help with creating a mindful practice for you. Another thing I want to share with you too is when you are slowing down, when you are getting to be present in the moment of whatever that is, especially if you feel like you're undergoing some sort of stress or a reaction that is causing you to negatively speak towards yourself in that way. Try to ask yourself the following things. What is it exactly that you're feeling, right? So I just mentioned the thing about somebody who said, I eat because I'm bored. Well, what is the boredom about? What is it? Do you always feel like you need to be productive? Is it because you're overwhelmed by things and that's causing you an inability to focus on something? The why, right? So that ties into the why of that. What is it? Can you name the emotion and then can you attach the why to it? Why am I feeling mad about something? Why am I feeling frustrated about something? What is causing me to be stressed? And then the last thing is, this is kind of what I call like the worst case scenario approach, right? What are you doing about it? So if you are in control of something, is there something that you can do to alleviate that stressful moment from happening? Maybe it requires a little bit of communication. Maybe it requires you having to set boundaries with yourself or with other people, or it might not be anything. I don't want to get too much into details here, but in the current state of the world we are in right now, that is causing a lot of people a lot of stress, myself included. Can I do anything about that as a whole? Maybe I can advocate, I can vote, I can write my representatives. That might make me feel a little bit better. I can speak on behalf, I can sign petitions for things that I feel strongly about, but I also have to recognize that I still am being affected by things. So maybe the thing that I can do to help myself is give myself a day where I'm not turning on the screens, I'm not looking at social media, and I'm just allowing my mind to ignore whatever's going on in the world. So think about these few things here as you're walking through stuff, because again, this might relate to your next steps. What happens when you eat, you sleep, you try to work out? Are these things going to affect whatever it is that you're trying to do to commit to your or to prioritize your overall health? All right, so now we're getting back to the positive self-talk. So we had negative self-talk before. Turning negative self-talk into positive thoughts. It's, again, easier said than done. And whenever I talk about stuff like this, people will say things like, yeah, right, but I don't believe that. Right. So in essence, I would rather believe that I am an idiot, that I suck at life, that I can't do anything right, versus telling myself I'm a work in progress. I have compassion. It takes time. It's okay. I'm doing something. I'm all right with this. I'm making an effort. Right? So think about the things that you are going through and also think about if this were someone else in your life, right? Would you be negatively speaking to them or would you try to be uplifting them and providing them with a positive outlook to stuff? So here is where I try to say, the more we try to talk about it, the more we hear ourselves in our head or out loud with the positive language, the easier it is to start believing things like that. So that could be another way that we reframe our language by thinking of if this was a friend who's having a hard time, if this is somebody who's asking you for help, you being the friend, you being the person who's asking for help, what are the things that you would say to them? And maybe this is something that's resonating with you right now. If it is, or if you feel like putting it in the chat, a thumbs up, letting me know if this is resonating with you, please do. Otherwise, it's totally fine to keep whatever your thoughts are private. I want you to feel safe and supported here, however you decide to engage or interact with this presentation. All right, so let me share a little bit about the language in which I was using earlier with a holistic approach. So in the world in which I come from here, the profession of being a registered dietitian, we really are a clinically focused profession. We are trained to treat people as if they were in the hospital or coming out of the hospital. That's really the main focus of a lot of what we do. We work with diseases, clinical states, variety of populations, different life cycles. It's very scientific, science-based. We address specific conditions and how they relate or preventing something from progressing or slowing the progression down of a stage of something that is already being managed. And so a lot of that goes back to just textbooks and science articles, et cetera, et cetera. The newer generations of dietitians, at least the ones that I'm aware of, and even I think a lot of the newer generations, or maybe the more current ways that people are training their healthcare professionals in facilities, we're trying to look more of a holistic approach here. And also, there are definitely people who just call themselves holistic practitioners, and they might have even deeper knowledge into uh, different modalities, like alternative ways of healing. So it can even go even deeper there. But in the case of what I'm talking about here, it's a little bit more on the surface level of recognizing that it's not just the person and their biology or their physiology. It's really the internal and external factors that play a role. So even if I say to somebody, okay, you have a chronic condition, you just got diagnosed with something, here's a meal plan, here's a list of foods that you should be careful or limit, work out more, make sure you're sleeping okay. That's entirely too easy and a little bit dismissive. And also, assuming that people are going to be able to implement the interventions or the treatments or the management plan. Instead, I, as the person on this end, but also you on your end too, consider all the things that make you who you are. Why is it so hard for you to maybe get from point A to point B? What are the things that are going on in your life that slow you down, that don't allow you to be consistent? Or alternatively, what are the things that you have already put in place for yourself that have allowed you to be consistent in what you're doing, that do bring you joy? And it's not just about the food that you eat every single day, it's about your finances, your relationships, your work environment, your education. So all of these different things play a role. And when we talk about including that in more of a holistic approach, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about not just saying you have a disease, here's how you fix it, or here's how you manage it. We're talking about what is the entire you, the physical, the mental health as well. All right, so bringing that now into somewhat more of this kind of list that you see here, right? These holistic approaches to manage stress and manage emotional eating, aside from what I just shared with you before about some of the other factors like food and physical activity and sleep. But now we could do what we just did earlier. If there's a time where you're feeling a little bit stressed out, or you see yourself going into the direction of comfort foods or emotional eating, that could be a time where you say to yourself, let me just at least acknowledge my breath, right? Just be aware of how you're breathing. Is it shallow? Is it rushed? I joke that sometimes I forget to breathe. You would think it's an involuntary action of my body, but sometimes I'm like, you know, like I haven't taken a breath in a minute. So was I about to pass out? What is happening here? Why did I hold my breath for so long? What is going on underneath it all? So that could be something that could be part of the technique or the approaches that you're using to manage stress and also help you with potentially emotional eating or anything that might be going on in the food and nutrition world of your life. Same with stillness and scanning your body. So physically, we said before, right? Slowing down and being present, also allowing yourself to be still, allowing yourself to be bored, allowing yourself just to sit with it, or give a quick scan to something. A lot of times when I work with I have a million injuries and things that I'm working on with physical therapists, and a lot of times they'll say to me, this is not just because you lifted something up, but you also are probably harboring a lot of whatever stress, trauma in your body, and your body is not allowing yourself to heal. So I don't have information on this. I'm not a qualified person to share some of the insights into this, but there are parts of your body, and I think more like acupressure, acupuncturists might go into stuff like this, where things are related to other things, right? Your kidney could be related to other things externally, your shoulders or your back or your spine or arthritis. These things could potentially be related to other things. So if you're feeling stress in your body, if you've ever heard of yoga nidra, that's another thing too, where they kind of go from top to bottom or bottom to top. Relax your toes, relax your shins. You're really forced to focus on places that you might not have ever been paying attention to before in a very particular manner. So that could be an approach that you use, even if it takes 30 seconds or 5 minutes. Mindful listening, right? We just did that before. What are you paying attention to? Sometimes we get caught in the zone. There's like a humming in the background. I do this, but I don't want to do this. We immediately just put the television on the second we walk in the house, or the second I'm about to sit down and start working, I put the television on, or I put a radio station that I can listen to. Why? Why do I have to listen to all these things in the background? What is keeping me focused or productive? maybe you're like me, you need a little something in the background, but maybe you enjoy the quiet, or maybe you enjoy being outdoors and just listening to the sounds of nature, or like I do, the sounds of the beach with the waves lapping. So again, when you're in those environments, give yourself a chance to just sit and listen mindfully. You also might enjoy scents, right? We talked about different kinds of smells earlier, or maybe lights, like the lower lights or candles, or you're putting a scented aroma. What's it called? Like an infused, right? The essential oils or an incense stick on. And these are things that bring you joy. Or like I have the little lavender spray. As soon as I smell that, I feel like I'm being taken away to a very, very quiet environment. Creating a kindness mantra to you. That brings in the discussion again around positive self-talk. So things that you can hear yourself saying negatively instead. I am so happy and grateful that I am in this body. I am so compassionate. I send love and joy to other people, and I receive love and joy for myself as well. And lastly, visualizing a safe space. Not everybody has the ability to be super chill and super comfortable wherever they are. So maybe there's a lot of high energy, or there could be an environment where there might be some high crime situations going on, or you live with people who are just not, you know, like-minded as you. And so tapping into visualizing a safer space for yourself, because when we talk about things like stress and emotions and mental health, it's the underlying factors, right? The feeling that you get inside that can, for lack of a better word, vibrate, create a chronic stress environment, and thereby also ends up potentially causing things like high blood pressure or cancer to form. If this is something that goes on constantly, if a lot of these factors are involved, the body understands, and things can manifest in that way. So if you're constantly on the lookout, you're constantly on the go, if you're constantly trying to fend off some stressful situation, allow yourself to maybe do one or many of these things, or whatever the situation might entail. You might use a variety of these things as well. All right, so I'm going to share with you some of like my favorite pictures and images of things that help me feel a little bit relaxed. And maybe if you want to put in the chat, or if you are watching this in the recording, you can shoot me a little note about what are things that automatically make you feel a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more calm, and help you with managing your stress. I love candles. I love the spa. I am a big believer that we don't have to treat our self-care as if it is a luxury. It is something that we deserve on the very human level, especially if we are going to be of service to others. We definitely need to make sure that we are refilling our own cup. And so for me, if I'm going for a massage or getting my nails done or just sitting in an environment which feels kind of chill and relaxed and light and airy, I really enjoy that. The next thing here, journaling, especially with a cup of tea or even having some flowers nearby, right? Take a look at this picture if it brings up any emotions for you too. Maybe that's something that is interesting to you or things that you already do. So again, this is something that I wanted to share with you as far as things that I think help me manage my stress, but feel free to create your own vision board or list of strategies for you to use when you feel like you're in that moment in that zone. Music. I keep forgetting to listen to music even though I love music. I listen to podcasts, not the same. I listen to Instagram reels of people talking all the time. I forget that when I put headphones on. So when I'm sitting down and I'm working, I listen to like a jazz radio station on Pandora or whatever, like some free version of something. But I also have spent a lot of money on music, which, nowadays it's not like CDs. I have them all on my iPhone, my iPad, my i whatever. And when I call these things up, I create playlists with them. Some of them are a little bit more relaxing and what they call like lo-fi, or some of them are, thrash metal if I feel like I need to get some housework done. And that actually does help me manage my stress too. I'm in the zone, I'm getting the energy out. I really feel like it does something on a very cellular level to me. So maybe that's something that you enjoy too. Obviously, we have things like YouTube and, like I said, Pandora, where you can look up things that are free, and maybe that's something that would bring you joy too. I like don't know if I like going to I used to like going to concerts. I don't go to concerts any much anymore, but I used to like going to concerts. But that might be something too, right? Going to see a musical group or a band playing. So in any form, way, shape, or form that this stuff might help you with relieving stress, then I encourage you to bring that back into your life. Lastly, I mean, duh, hello, I'm a dietitian, but I also have in a more personal manner, right? Because not all dietitians are going to follow their own rules. Obviously, we are also human, but in a more personal manner, I've really just been able to recognize what does and doesn't work with my body. So my GI system used to be a little messed up. And so I know things that I eat or overeat or things that I indulge in that there might be an immediate effect over it. I love things like this. And I love especially bowls of everything. Do you have any idea how easy it is for me to just go stick my hand in the refrigerator, toss everything into a bowl, squirt some hot sauce on top of it, and down it goes? It's like no thoughts at all. And it provides me with pretty much everything I need on one plate, but also it makes me slow down a little bit because like I'm digging and stabbing at things, I'm chewing. I'm really being mindful about the food that I'm eating. And again, that took me many years to try to get to that point. So maybe that's something with you too. Maybe a mindful technique for you might be cooking from scratch or going grocery shopping or heading to the farmer's market and checking out what's around for the seasonal foods or what's available in the local restaurants. If you enjoy socializing, that could be a way for you to help manage your stress and give you some more mindful techniques towards helping with maintaining your overall health and wellness. Okay, the last, not one of the last, one of the last things, we're going to get into a couple of other techniques here soon, but I want to also acknowledge things, especially in a world where I talked about this, I think, in the last discussion about the blue zones, where we looked at a variety of populations that lived to be 100 years and older, and the real sense of community. And I think, with the last 4 years of somewhat isolation and working from home isn't helpful either. We sometimes forget that we are part of a larger common cause. So expressing kindness and gratitude, not just to ourselves, but also to others, and then receiving that too, right? When people say nice things to us and we're like, what, this old thing? Or no, I don't deserve your compliments, like allowing that, exploring that ability to be compassionate. Also, doing good deeds for others, whether you're paying money for contributing to something, or you are volunteering at a food co-op, or you are working with seniors, whatever it is that you think, at least I do. If I'm in a rut, one of the best things to get me out of that is to just go and help some people, just improve my mood automatically by being able to engage in conversations. Not that I'm like, oh, I have things so much better than they do, but it just gives me a larger sense of awareness that stop getting so much in my head. And allowing yourself also to accept yourself for who you are. This is a big thing too. I am grateful for getting older, right? This is a privilege that I have gotten to be this age. A lot of people don't make it this far. So I'm not going to be complaining that I'm 50 something or that my hair is gray. I'm not doing that. I'm very grateful for it. I'm also accepting a lot of things in my life at this point that I have been willing to let go. I'm not the kind of person who will do certain things that I've been begging myself to do for years. I'm just not going to do those anymore. So it feels really lighter for me now to be able to walk through my next chapter of life saying, that doesn't serve me. I'm accepting who I am and I'm practicing kindness. And I'm also very grateful for a lot of things around me too. Okay, let me jump into the chat for a sec. So I appreciate everybody chiming in here. Thank you, Marisol, chiming in with journaling, soft music. Yeah, dim light. Oh, coloring and painting. Very creative. I love that. Yes, museums. We have so at the time of this webinar, at the time of this recording, we're in October. Next weekend, there's something called Open House New York. If you are in the vicinity, feel free to look it up. let me put this in the chat, ohny.com or whatever. I forget what it is. Just type that into Google and you'll find it. Throughout the whole city, including Staten Island, like all the boroughs are in on this. Some things you have to pay for, some things are open access, but it's like entering into people's private spaces, museums that are sometimes not open to the public. Architects that have their houses open, like they're just letting people in to give us all a glimpse of the design and the architecture and the different neighborhoods. And it's a great way to get out and about and to explore. And so, like I said, of course, your girl here is very budget conscious, so I'm not going to be paying top dollar for anything. So I'm going to all the open access things. And there's a whole map. And I'll make a day out of it. Actually, technically, it's 3 days. It's a whole weekend. It's Friday the 18th, Saturday the 19th, and Sunday the 20th. Am I getting that right? Or 19th, 20th, and 21st. I forget what the dates are. But yeah, it's super, super cool. It's been on my list to do for 6 years now, and I've never gone. So I'm finally going to do it, weather permitting, next week. Anyway, so that the point is that there's museums involved in that and getting to see what's around. And hopefully that also helps with bringing up my energy as well, which I love. I love being, listen, why am I in New York if I can't take advantage of it? That's just silly. Okay, we have a couple of minutes here to go into this, if you don't mind. And if you don't want to do this, this is okay. I'm going to set a 2-minute timer. And I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to ask everybody to either think or write down gratitude. What are you currently grateful for in your life? What are you grateful that you can do, what you can bring to others? However you want to word this is totally up to you. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes and I'll come back on. So take 2 minutes, just do a mindful practice of either writing down or thinking about gratitude. About 1 minute left. Okay, that was 2 minutes. That felt like an hour and a half. If anybody's like me, I always feel like time goes by so quickly, but then stuff like that, I'm like, is it 2 minutes yet? No, it's only a minute and a half. Okay. If you are so inclined and you want to share in the chat anything that came up for you as far as what you are grateful for, please feel free. Or if you're around people that you want to share with, feel free to share. If not, that's okay. There's no pressure here to or obligation to do so. I wrote down a bunch of things, so I'm going to share that with you just because I like doing that. I am very grateful for my friends, my family, my loved ones, my circle of people, my network. And that extends out to students and coworkers, people who are very there for me in a very present way. They also, a lot of them know me very well to know when I need support, even if I'm not asking for it. I am also very grateful for science, technology, and the internet because it allows me to do things like this. I think, as you know, as much as the online space can be a little bit overwhelming and a little bit stressful, it also makes the world much smaller. I can call my aunt in Australia via Facebook video call for free. That's super cool to see her across the world in a tiny little screen. I also, one of the things I love doing, even though I don't have the money yet to go, and I'm a little nervous about traveling on a plane, but I don't go travel a lot. But what I love doing is I go onto Google Maps every so often and I just look up random places across the globe, like Thailand or Belize, like places I think might be cool to visit. And because of science, technology, and all the things on the internet, I can live vicariously through people because people have posted their pictures of what they ate and what they did when they were there. So even if I can't physically go myself or I don't want to go someplace far, far away, I have the ability to connect in that way. And that also is a stress reliever to see these fun, beautiful pictures of things. I'm also very grateful to live in the city because I think it allows me the ability to engage in a variety of diverse populations. And because of what I do too as a teacher and what I do as a healthcare professional, I also feel like I am quite humbled by the people with whom I interact. I don't know if that would be the same if I was someplace in an area that didn't have a large city type population or a variety of demographics. Like, I love the fact that I could go and check out any cuisine on the planet in like a 7 block radius from my house. I can check out so many different types of markets and neighborhoods. And I think it makes me feel very cultured. And it also makes me feel very humble because it allows me to understand the larger scope of where I live and not just stay focused on me, right? I get to see everybody else around me. I'm also grateful for having food and running water and a roof over my head. And even though I said earlier, I do have some injuries that I'm dealing with, and my health isn't, 100% perfect, but I'm glad that I have it. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that I'm able to breathe and share with all of you. Marisol, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. Right. So many things to be grateful for. And I know you, and I know that you are also very involved in so many things. So I'm 100% certain that there are people on this earth, myself included, who are very grateful that you are here too. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being so vulnerable and transparent, everybody in the chat. All right. So sort of wrapping up, where are we at right now with time? About 6 minutes left or so. Trying to remember that you're always a work in progress. There is no such thing as perfection. Who wants to be dealing with that nonsense all the time? It's far too hard to try to maintain all of that. So striving for progress, every little bit helps. Little bit counts. If you can just like a 1% increment on whatever you did yesterday, that's fine. If you can only do what you did yesterday, that's fine. We also have to acknowledge that not everything is going to be hunky-dory all the time. Like I said before, if you're dealing with states of boredom, or you are feeling stressed out, and just a quick note, go see a therapist or a mental health professional if there are definitely things that you feel like you can't manage at all, because they can help you with creating strategies and tools and uncovering some past traumas that might be able to help overcome some barriers and obstacles. But even in doing your own stuff like we just did today, recognizing that sometimes things are going to feel uncomfortable and you might just need to be in it in a moment. That's what makes us human, right? Everything can't just be love and kindness all the time. Sometimes we do have some challenges, and it helps us maybe grow stronger and strengthen us a little bit. Also, lastly, recognizing that any change that you want for yourself is going to take time, whether you're doing something or undoing something. We live in a society, in a world, in a country where everything is immediate gratification. Has to happen now, right? 30-day challenges and beach body, whatever. Like, it's just enough with this nonsense. Like, just take time, enjoy the progress and the process of going through things. Allow yourself to be patient and compassionate with yourself and recognize that you are a work in progress. So some things, like last things I want to share with you, just kind of picking and choosing some of the stuff that we talked about. If you're focusing on food and nutrition specifically, these are some of the at-home homework assignments I could give to you. Try to choose one meal or a snack this week or sometime soon. Try to eat it without distractions, like no screens. Don't be working while you're eating. Try to give yourself just a food, a meal, or a snack where you can just eat without distractions. The next thing is, either before bed or upon waking up, try to focus attention on some different part of the body. What is it about my feet? They hit the ground. What is it about my arm when I open up the refrigerator? What is it about my eyes when I'm looking around to find something to make for myself? And maybe also, or, either one of these things or all three of these things at the end of each day, reflect on some of the choices you've made, especially if they are related to food and nutrition. I was feeling really stressed out. I was working really hard. I got called into a meeting. My friend kept me at her house forever and ever. And so these were the things that I ended up doing, and I didn't really feel in control. Or I did feel in control. I felt really positive about some of the choices I made. And I feel like my day went pretty spot on. So keeping track of things like that is a way for us just to collect data and just to understand a little bit more about our patterns and maybe help us hone in on some of the things that we're working on. So for you, as always with these webinars at the very end, I always try to encourage you to choose one or all three of these things, right? So we learned a lot about different techniques today. We learned a lot about understanding how stress and mental health can affect physical health and vice versa. So are there things that you want to start doing in your life that you can pick up as a new habit right now? Are there things that you're already doing that you want to continue doing, you want to keep on doing that's working for you? Then allow that to keep going and be consistent at that. And are there things that are no longer serving you that you would like to remove, however short or long of a time that that might take to happen, as far as stopping that particular thing or that habit? So think about that. If you want to share in the chat, you can. I'll come back to the chat in a second. If you want to think about that in your head, feel free. If you want to loop me in on this after the fact and tell me, what your progress is, you can find me on the internet at Dish with Dina, and we can connect online, social media, via my website, however you want to work with me in whatever way. Or I will see you maybe at our next webinar, which is in November. November, we are going to tie this into diabetes awareness, and we're going to talk about preventing and also managing what is known as type 2 diabetes. That's more lifestyle related. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about all of what's involved in the discussion around diabetes on Thursday, November 14th. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here. I know that I took us pretty much right up until the end of the hour, but let me take a look at what's in the chat. Exactly, Marisol. That's so funny. Oh, thank you, Jocelyn. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, whoever else is here live. I always say like dozens of people sign up for this, a handful show up live, and the rest of everybody watches this in the recording. So if you're watching this after the fact, thanks so much for watching this. Marisol, okay, good. Being physically active. Oh, okay. I used to be a smoker, so that's interesting too. Okay, so yeah, if you are looking to get rid of that habit or know somebody who needs to get rid of that habit, I send you a lot of support and patience for that as well. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. So on that note, I hope to see you again next month or on the internet, social media, etc., wherever we can find each other. Thanks again for being here, everyone. Bye.